At the edge of a wood there lived an old man who had only one son. One day he called the boy to him and asked him to go grind some corn. But he warned the youth to not go into any mill where the miller was beardless. The boy took the corn and set on his way. Before long he came to a large mill in front of a river, and there was a beardless man sitting in the doorway. "Good evening, beardless one," he said. "Greetings, sonny," said the man. "Can I grind something here?" "Certainly," said the man. "I will finish what I am doing, and then you can grind as long as you like." But suddenly the boy remembered what his father had told him, and he bade farewell to the man, and he headed further down the river. He came to another mill, but what he did not know was the beardless man had grabbed a sack of corn and ran as fast as he could, so that he had reached the second mill before the youth. When the boy reached the second mill, he saw a second beardless man sitting in the doorway, and he did not stop. He walked on till he came to a third mill. But the man had done the exact same thing, and there he was, sitting in the doorway. By the time it happened the fourth time, the boy was very cross, and he said to himself, "It is no use to keep going on. There seems to be a beardless man at every mill." He took his sack from his back, and he made up his mind to grind the corn where he was. The beardless man finished his own corn, and the boy started grinding his. The beardless man said, "Suppose, sonny, that we make a cake of that corn that you're grinding." Now the boy was rather uneasy when he recollected his father's words, but he thought to himself, "Well, what is done cannot be undone," and he answered, "Very well, let it be." Then the beardless man got up, threw the flour into the tub, and made a hole in the middle. He told the boy to fetch some water from the river with his hands, and so that they could mix the cake. When the cake was ready, they put it into the fire and covered it with ashes so it would be baked all the way through. Then they leaned it up against the wall, for it was too big to go into a cupboard, and the beardless man said to the boy, "Look here, sonny, if we share this cake, neither of us will have enough. Let us see who can tell the biggest lie, and the one who lies the most will get the cake for himself." The boy, not knowing what else to do, answered, "All right, you begin." So the beardless man began to lie, and he lied with all his might, and when he was tired of inventing new stories, the boy said to him, "My good fellow, is that the best you can do? Listen to me. I will tell you a true story. In my youth, when I was an old man, we had a quantity of beehives, and every morning when I got up I counted them over, and it was quite easy to number the number of bees, but I could never count the hives properly. One day, as I was counting the bees, I discovered that my best bee was missing. And without losing a moment, I saddled a rooster, and I went out to look for him. I traced him as far as the shore, and I knew that he had crossed the sea, and that I must follow. When I reached the other side, I found a man who had harnessed my bee to a plow, and with his help he was sowing millet seed." "That's my bee," I said. "Where did you get him from?" "Brother," said the man, "if he is yours, take him." And he gave me back my bee, and along with it a sack of millet seed, because he had made use of my bee. Then I put the bag on my shoulders, and I saddled the bee so that the rooster might have a rest, and I led him by a string. And then we went across the sea, but as we were over the sea, the string holding the bag of millet seed broke, and the millet fell into the ocean. It was quite lost, of course, and there was no use thinking of it any further. and by the time we were safe back home again, night had come. I then got down from my bee, and I let him loose so he could get something to eat, and I gave some hay to the rooster so he could eat, and I went to sleep myself. But when I awoke with the sun, what a scene met my eyes! During the night, wolves had eaten my bee, and honey lay ankle deep in the valley and knee deep in the hills. Then I began to consider how I might be able to collect some honey to take it home with me. Now it just so happened that I had a small hatchet with me, and I took this to the wood, hoping to meet an animal that I could kill to turn the skin into a bag to carry the honey. And as soon as I entered the forest, I saw 2 deer hopping on one leg. So I killed them both with a single blow, and I made 3 bags from their skins, of which I filled with honey, and I placed it on the back of the rooster. Finally, I reached home, where I was told that my father had been born, and I must go at once to fetch holy water so that he could be sprinkled. As I went, I turned over in my mind if there was any way for me to get my millet seed back, which I dropped into the ocean. And when I arrived at the place where the holy water was, I saw the seed had fallen on fruitful soil, and it was growing right before my very eyes. And more than that, it was being cut by invisible hands and made into a cake. So I took the cake as well as the holy water, and I was flying back over the sea, and there came a great rain, and the sea was so swollen that it swept away my millet cake. Oh, how vexed I was at its loss, once I was safe on earth again. Then suddenly I remembered my hair was very long. When I stood, it reached the ground. When I sat, it reached my ears. I seized a knife and I cut off a large lock, which I plaited together, and when night came, I was going to use it as a pillow. But what was I to do for a fire? A tinder box I had, but no wood. Then it occurred to me that I had stuck a needle in my clothes. So I took the needle and I split it in 2 and lit it. And I laid down by the warm, cozy fire and went to sleep. But ill luck still plagued me. While I was sleeping, a spark from the fire lighted on my hair, which was burnt up in a moment. In despair, I threw myself on the ground, and instantly I sank in it to my waist. I struggled to get out, but I only fell in further. So I ran to the house, I grabbed a shovel, I dug myself out, and I took home the holy water. On the way, I noticed that the ripe fields were full of reapers, and suddenly the air became so frightfully hot that the men were dropping down in a faint. I called to them, "Why don't you bring out a mare, which is as tall as 2 days and as broad as half a day, and make use of it for shade?" My father heard what I said, and he jumped quickly onto the mare, and the reapers worked with quite a will in the shadow, while I snatched up a wooden pail to bring them some water to drink. Now when I got to the well, I found that the water was frozen solid. So I took my head off to break the ice, and then I drew the water, and when I got close to the reapers, they all cried out, "What has become of your head?" I put my hand up, and I discovered that I had no head. I must have left it in the well. I ran back to look for it, and I saw a fox had found it and pulled it out of the water. I stole cautiously up behind him, and I gave him such a kick that he uttered a loud scream, and he let fall a parchment on which was written, "The cake is mine, and the beardless one goes empty-handed." And with these words, the boy rose and took the cake and went home, while the beardless one remained behind to swallow his disappointment.